wrote it in the 1950s when there were challenges then to the human side of enterprise. So this isn't, we just have different forms of challenges. And we've created different ways of distancing ourselves from each other. But it's a continuing problem. And it's great that you're taking on the current problem so that we can understand relationships and where technology fits.
Well, indeed, that's been my concern in getting involved and interested in this whole question about shortcomings in effective communication, and then the advent of technology on top of that, minimising face-to-face contact. In Sherry Turkle's book, Reclaiming Conversation, which is an interesting read, she's been studying the interface between effective communication and connection between people and technology. Her last book records interviews with teachers and school principals across America, where the teachers are saying they're seeing a drop in empathy amongst the kids, that they don't relate to each other like they used to. She describes it as the look-down generation, that when kids are together, they're all looking at their phone. The phone is the centerpiece of their conversation. It's not looking at each other and talking about what's of mutual interest. It's really what's of common interest that they can identify on their phone. The cake that someone just ate or was about to eat, photographing your food, or the latest thing that someone posted about where they were, or the latest tweet. The whole thing is other directed and not back to a primary and valuable conversation between two people. And the irony was, as she said, is that what happens now is that kids are more connected with each other when they're away from each other, because they go to bed holding their phones, and when asked, why are you doing that? And the answer is, because I might be needed by one of my friends. So the perversity is, that's why she, in her earlier book, Alone Together, Joan was right about, I said together alone. Her previous book was Alone Together, was highlighting this problem, that when kids and young people, and even adults, of course, come into our ranks, when they're together, they're really alone. They're not really interfacing the way you would hope, and I use the word interfacing deliberately. So this odd thing that they feel more connection and more concern for their friends when they're not together than when they're together. So that's why, that was when I read the posting of the last survey, and Mike's name was mentioned, and so we made contact, and that's how he comes to be here. So thank you for that.
I think it's important, Max, just a couple of quick observations to share. When we released that particular Tech versus Touch headline, I mean, like anything, you tend to get a little bit of media interest in these things, but that one was the most impactful piece of research that we put out there. For about a week and a half, I literally was just about on every radio show around the country, as well as online magazines and etc. And mainly because, and where the conversations went beyond the workplace. It went from, I used to get the, what do you call them, DJs, the radio announcers, that saying basically texting his wife to come in for dinner who was out in the garden. And you used to be, so I'm basically very careful not to offer any marriage advice, I'm not qualified. But essentially I was getting into all sorts of interesting conversations for about a week and a half, interview after interview. So it certainly pricked the Australian psyche there. And my final comment on it, every year we do the 10 or 12 characteristics of what makes an employer of choice. And the three things that really stand out pretty consistently is, well, the two ones that consistently stay out is job security and financial benefits. Now, they're generally in the top most of the time. The one that's really come from the clouds a little bit is pleasant working atmosphere. And pleasant working atmosphere, what that actually means is camaraderie, connection with my friends, relationship I have with my boss, the environment, the physical environment in it, etc. So be very, very careful about the impact that technology may have on that particular trait.
Indeed. Thanks, Mike. That's terrific, and it actually dovetails well with Grant's position. Grant has been, or was for a long time, studying why the high-performing companies in the world are high-performing companies. How do they get there and why they stay there? Can you tell us a little bit about that work, Grant?
Yeah, okay. A couple of random observations. When you study something for such a long time, you generate a very big bias towards certain things that you see, and they occur over and over again. And so I just want to throw out a couple of those biased observations. Number one, if we just go to what Ken was talking about previously, your high-performance organisations, it's the way they're structured, it's the environment they set up that makes them high performance. Any person can go into a high-performance organisation and perform at a high level, communicate effectively, do all those things if the organisation is set up that way. But if you look across the world, just on that one, we know what those characteristics are. We know all the system structures, processes, everything to make a high-performance organisation. And they're all part of the case studies of every major university around the world, every major business school. So every senior executive across the Western world knows about these case studies. Yet only 2% of organisations ever make it into the high-performance category. And if you look at the Harvard studies and other studies, you'll find that they beat the opposition, they beat their competition significantly. If you look at their net profit on average over 10 years, so this is an average net profit over a 10-year period, they average 756% increase. Your average organisation, the hierarchical one Ken was talking about, averages 1%. So it's chalk and cheese. So if we know what it is to be high performance, then why don't we get there? So the thing I'm most interested in, because I come from a sports psychology background. So back in the late 70s, early 80s, I worked as a sports psychologist, taught sports psychology at the University of WA, and took the same principles of high performance in sport into business. The thing I'm most interested about is if you know how to do something well, why don't you do it? And there's a couple of observations that I have, and I've talked to Max about this, and I think it's biological. I think that power dimension that Ken talked to today, earlier, is irresolvable, and that some people on their genetic structure have a need for power that overrides logic. They have in a sense, they have this drive, this internal drive to always be in control of other people. And so there is a biological component there, and then you get into organisations, you just talk about, well, how do people get on and communicate effectively? In your very high-performance organisations, the teams do their own hiring, and they hire people they like. They hire people they can get on with. So if you go to most airlines, for example, they'll have a nepotism clause in their hiring policies or procedures that says you can't hire people that you're friendly with or you know or family or whatever. If you go to Southwest Airlines, who are the best performing airline sustainably over 40 or 50 years, it's mandated that you hire your friends and family. Because you work out pretty quickly with your friends and family who you like and who you don't like. And so you're not going to bring into the team anybody you can't get on with. And it's a really critical factor because people don't like each other. There's 100 people in the room. How many are you going to get on with sustainably over a long period of time? Throw me a number. 5? Someone said 5? Research says about 3. So if the human resource department is hiring all these people and then putting them in your team, what are the chances of you getting on with them, communicating effectively? Well, your DNA is only there for one purpose, and that's to replicate. And what it's doing all the time is rejecting. It just rejects till it finds somebody that it likes and it can get on with. It's not really in the intellectual discussion that we're having here today. So we don't have this understanding of the biological drivers. We don't talk about them, but they are critical in terms of high-performance organisations. And when I've gone around and looked at all these groups, and for something like 12 years, I took senior executives to the best-performing organisations around the world, there was always this common factor, and that is the best organisations always had a leader who loved listening to the people that they hired, that they worked with. And Coffee Conversations comes from a gentleman called Shane Garland, who his management style, if you have a look in the book, you can see the results, but his management style was just outstanding. And really all he did was sit down with his staff and say, yeah, over coffee, you know, what could we do better around here? And then empower them to go and do that. So if you look at high-performance organisations, they treat people well, they engage them in the decisions that are going to affect their work, and then they empower them to execute. And they don't have to, it doesn't matter whether they're hierarchical or flattened. That's irrelevant. It's that process of what the leaders actually set up as a culture and an environment. So it's, in a sense, it's all the things you've been talking about today. It's just valuing people. So it's very simple, but we spend trillions on training. Most of it doesn't work. So
Training of managers.
Training, leadership training, you know, communication training, most of it doesn't work. You'll see there VitalSmart, it says managing director. I'm actually a shareholder, I'm not a managing director of the business, but people know VitalSmarts, know Crucial Conversations. It's the only, and I've looked at this right around the world, it's the only research-based, scientifically based training program that actually teaches the skill of communicating in tough situations. So it's really designed to help people speak up and be empowered to manage the tough conversations. And to go to the technology, we brought out somebody from Facebook last year. Facebook used Crucial Conversations to develop the skill. They do all their conflict resolution and all their communication over Facebook. So they use the technology, but you can't use the technology if you don't have the skill. And this is true in anything that you do. If you don't have an embedded skill, a deliberately practiced skill, you're not going to be able to achieve that empowered outcome. That is, take control of what's going on around you. So just some basic observations. I could talk for 3 days on it, but I'll stop there.
Yes, the connection with Grant apart was I did in the paper that I wrote that I think we emailed to you on the experience that led to this conference. I was speaking to Joe Catanzariti, who's the Vice President of the Federal Commission, and I was saying all I know is that a lot of organisations have short training courses for communication and boxes are ticked, and Ken talks about this and Joan in their books, that there is a bit of lip service paid to it. Yes, do you do ever, and I find this in the health system here. Well, you know, I'm really interested in introducing Crucial Conversations because I think it's a good program. I've done 2 of them, and I think it is a really good tool. They said, no, we do this. We already have good training in that. And you said, could you mind if I come and watch it? Oh, look, it's tomorrow afternoon, or it was yesterday. And you find that it was about 3 hours, and it's all box ticking. They just don't take it seriously enough, which drives the other issue about this descriptor that I hate, that these things are soft skills. We've talked about this before. If communication and learning how to listen, as Hugh Mackay said, are the hardest things to do, if that's a soft skill, then I don't know what a hard skill is. This is difficult stuff. So I found the Crucial Conversations training and the accountability training very helpful. And one of the thing that, because they also do a train the trainer as well, so people who do the courses can then go back into their organisation and train everybody else, so it spreads the word. And secondarily, what I liked about it was that they use professional video scenes, the very thing that people need, where here's a conversation at work done badly, and then you do an exercise and you do the training, and then they say, now here's what it looks like when it's done correctly. And all of a sudden people are saying, I get it, right? I can see the difference between speaking to somebody that way and speaking to someone that way, and it's played out. So, you know, I've been giving a rap to Crucial Conversations for a while, and I met Grant, and then, of course, we got to talking about his book, which, if I can just come back to that for a moment, is the other parameters that I think you've mentioned in some of these organisations. They don't have performance review strict systems, KPIs and the like.
Yeah, if you're a high-performance group, you don't have performance reviews. You don't need them because if you're a high-performance team, you're continually reviewing your performance minute by minute. So the high performance is completely different to what you see in normal organisations.
The other parameter was sick leave. no sick leave policy, so if you're sick, you don't come to work. But there's no cap of 8 days a year. I think that was one of the others, wasn't it?
Unlimited sick leave. Yeah, you trust people. They're working there in partnership with you to run the business. They're well trained, they're well educated, they're well motivated. The communication is really good. So you're not watching them, controlling them, doing any of those things. You're empowering them. We can only empower them by creating that environment, that empowering environment. But you can't empower somebody unless you also skill them. The skill component is really important. I can't take my 5-year-old daughter to the edge of the freeway and say you're empowered, self-manage, cross the road. But somewhere between 5 and 15, she's going to have to learn that skill. And what we're really good at is generating information. The world is awash with way, way too much information. And people think if they've got information, then they know how to do something. The reality is you actually have to deliberately practice a skill if you're going to be able to effectively execute. Any golfers in the room? Anybody play golf? 1, 2, a couple of guys there. Yeah, all the guys putting their hands up a little bit. Just one last story and I'll finish. I live in Perth. I live on a golf course. I play every Saturday morning. I walk up to the golf club. I'm only about 500 metres from the club, and I walk back after I've played. So I play every morning. On the Saturday morning, it's around about 7 o'clock. I like to be the first on with the team, my group, because I like to play fast. For me, it's about how fast you can actually play the game. Right? 10 years ago, I'd finish, we'd have a drink, I'd be walking down, and there would be this young kid just there chipping away on the green, putting, doing his thing. And always used to have a chat to him, really personable young kid, whatever. And I said, you're here every week, you must be getting bored. And he said, no, I love it. He said, I'm getting better all the time. 10 years ago, followed him for that 10 years. He's been doing this every week, every day, 40 hours a week. He just won the US Amateur Open. He's the first, I think the second Australian in 100 years. And then he, with another team of guys, just won the Eisenhower Cup this weekend by about 19 strokes. Now, if you don't play golf, you don't understand that, but that is a fantastic performance, unbelievable performance. But it comes down to the fact that he deliberately practiced for that for 10 years. So he'll be good. He'll make millions and millions of dollars. Now, the interesting thing about all that is that golf is one of the easiest games to play. It's one of the easiest. The ball is just sitting there. You can hit it. Everyone can do it. And I sit at my window and I watch people come past, young kids through to 90-year-old people. They're all playing it. But to do it at a high performance level requires huge deliberate practice. And that's the difference. If you want to be a great communicator, it requires lots of deliberate practice. If you want to be able to empower a team, Shane Garland, who I write with in the coffee conversations, you just have to have a love of people. He just loves people, he loves empowering them, he loves seeing them do well. And then you don't need anything else because people won't let you down if you actually give them the opportunity and the trust. That's it.
Good stuff. Thank you. Well, unless there's any further questions, I think we've done well. We finished a little after time, but thank you for coming, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.